This week, someone is going to catch your eye. And in that instant, without ever deciding to, you will start doing things you cannot quite explain. You will stand a little straighter. You will care how you look. You will try to be funny or interesting or generous. You think you are just flirting. You are not. You are running a program 1,000,000 years old, one that is choosing your mate for you, whether you like it or not. So how did prehistoric humans actually find a mate? And why is the answer still steering you every time your heart skips at a stranger across a room? For almost all of human history, finding a mate was not a choice made over coffee. It was the single highest stakes thing you would ever do. Your whole existence is a chain of ancestors who succeeded at it, and not one who failed. Here is the short answer. The reason you are alive is that a prehistoric human somewhere outcharmed a rival and passed that talent down to you. Everything about your body and mind was sharpened over 1,000,000 years to win at this one game. But here's the strange part nobody tells you. The very things we call romance, art, music, a sharp sense of humor, a kind and generous heart. They may all be survival weapons in disguise. To see how, start not with love, but with a problem your ancestors had to solve: staying together. Most mammals do not fall in love. A male and a female meet, they mate, and they part, often within minutes. No bond, no home, no future. For most of life on Earth, that is the whole story of romance. But somewhere on the road to becoming human, our ancestors did something almost no other mammal does. They started to stay. The anthropologist Owen Lovejoy argues this was the deepest turning point of all. Millions of years ago, he says, our ancestors began forming pair bonds. A male and a female staying together, raising their young as a team. Why? Because of a brutal problem. A human baby is helpless for years, far longer than any ape. A mother alone could not gather enough food and protect a slow, defenseless infant at the same time. So a new kind of male became valuable. Not the strongest fighter, the reliable provider, the one who would bring food back and stay. Lovejoy believes this reshaped our very bodies. Females began to prefer steady providers over aggressive rivals, and they lost something almost every other primate keeps: the visible signal of fertility. In most primates, a female openly advertises when she can conceive, and every male in range competes for those few days. But human females conceal it. Even you often do not know the exact day, and Lovejoy argues this was no accident. If a male could never know exactly when his mate was fertile, his only real strategy was to stay close, all the time, and provide. Hidden fertility may have been the invention that chained the sexes together and made the human family possible. The pair bond, quietly, was being built into our flesh. And it was built into the brain, too. The anthropologist Helen Fisher spent her life mapping love inside the human head and found not one system, but three. First, lust, the raw sex drive, pushing you to seek out partners at all. Second, attraction, romantic love, that obsessive, dizzy, sleepless focus on one single person, driven by a flood of dopamine, the same chemical as an addiction. And third, attachment, the calm, deep oxytocin bond that lets two people stay together for years and raise a child. Every one of those systems is ancient: the racing heart, the obsession, the comfort of a familiar body beside you in the dark. They did not evolve for poetry. They evolved because pairs who bonded raised more children who lived. Love is not a modern invention. It is very old survival machinery, and you are wired with all of it. Picture a night 100,000 years ago. A fire, low and orange. Two young people sitting close, not quite touching. The whole band around them, but the world narrowed to the few inches between their shoulders. Neither has a word for what they feel, but the dopamine is already doing its ancient work, blotting out everyone else, until there is only this one face, lit by firelight, and the terrifying, wonderful certainty that you would follow it anywhere. That feeling is older than language, and it is exactly the one you know. But wanting a mate is one thing. Winning one is another. And this is where the story turns truly strange. Because to be chosen, our ancestors had to advertise. And what they advertised with may be the most human thing about us. We tend to think our big brains evolved to make tools, or hunt, or survive. The psychologist Geoffrey Miller argues something wilder. That much of the human mind evolved not to survive, but to seduce. His idea is called the mating mind, and it goes like this. The things that make us most human: art, music, dance, language, humor, generosity. They are expensive. They take a big, hungry, costly brain to produce, and that is exactly the point. Because a peacock's tail is useless, it is heavy, it is dangerous, it slows him down. And that is precisely why the peahen loves it. Only a truly fit, healthy male can afford to grow something so wasteful and still survive. The tail is an honest advertisement of good genes. Miller argues that human art is our peacock's tail, a cave painting, a carved figurine, a song sung around the fire, a joke that makes the whole band laugh. None of it fills the stomach, but all of it screams the same thing. Look at me. My brain is so powerful, so healthy, that I can afford to spend it on beauty. Choose me. Think about what that means. The oldest art in the world, the ochre patterns, the ivory beads, the paintings deep in the caves, may not be religion or record-keeping. It may be the oldest dating profile on Earth. Our ancestors were beautiful and clever and funny because being those things got them chosen, and we are their descendants, the winners of a million-year beauty contest. And the courtship was not only in the mind, it was on the body and in the hands. Prehistoric humans adorned themselves. They ground red ochre and painted their skin. They pierced shells and animal teeth and strung them into necklaces. The first jewelry in the human record is tens of thousands of years old, and it did the same job it does today. It made the wearer stand out. It said, "I am worth looking at." And there was one display more powerful than any ornament: food. Remember Lovejoy's reliable provider, a man who could bring down big game and share it, was not just showing strength. He was proving he could feed a family. In many hunter-gatherer societies, the best hunters have more partners and more children. Generosity was not only kind, it was seductive. So the deep roots of romance are already all here, 100,000 years ago. The dizzy obsession, the showing off, the gift, the careful making of yourself beautiful for another. Every awkward, hopeful thing you have ever done for someone you wanted, they did first in the firelight, long before you were born. But there was a problem no amount of charm could solve. Where do you even find someone? A hunter-gatherer band was tiny, perhaps 25 people. Your parents, your siblings, your cousins, the people you had known your entire life. And that is a disaster for finding a mate. Because the one rule written deepest into biology is this: you cannot pair with your close kin. Do it, and the children are born weak, sick, and often do not survive. So your mate could almost never come from your own band. They had to come from outside, from strangers. And that meant our ancestors had to solve something remarkable. They had to build a way to meet and trust and marry into other groups. And we now have hard proof that they did. At Sungir, that same Russian site with the ivory-bead burials, scientists led by Eske Willerslev read the DNA of the people buried there. And they found something stunning. The individuals were not close relatives. In a tiny Ice Age population, they had deliberately avoided pairing with their own kin. The data suggested these people, 34,000 years ago, understood inbreeding and had built a system to prevent it. Small bands of around 25, loosely connected into wider networks of a couple of hundred people, with rules about who could partner with whom, a prehistoric web of marriage stretching across the frozen land. Think about the courage that took. To find love, you had to leave the only people you had ever trusted, Walk towards strangers who might kill you, and try to win one of them over. Every mate was a small act of diplomacy and of daring. The gatherings where distant bands met, to trade, to feast, to dance, were not only parties. They were where the future of the species was decided, where strangers became family. Picture one of those gatherings, two bands who see each other maybe once a year, meeting at a river in the long summer light. There is trading and food and firelight, and there, across the crowd, a young person from the other band catches your eye. You have painted yourself in ochre. You are wearing your best ornaments. Someone starts to drum. And you step out to dance, not for fun, but for your life, every movement saying, "Look how strong, how healthy, how alive I am." It is a job interview, a performance, and the most important thing you will ever do all at once. And somewhere in that firelit crowd, if you are lucky, someone is watching and beginning to choose you. And sometimes the stranger our ancestors chose was not even the same kind of human. For most of prehistory, we were not alone. We shared the planet with other human species, the Neanderthals in Europe and the Middle East, the Denisovans in Asia, different but human with their own fires, their own tools, their own dead to bury. And when we met them, we did not only fight, we mated with them. We know this beyond any doubt, thanks to a scientist named Svante Paabo, who did something once thought impossible. He read the entire genome of a Neanderthal from ancient bone. It won him the Nobel Prize. And what he found is written inside most of the people alive today. If your ancestry lies anywhere outside Africa, then around 2% of your DNA is Neanderthal. It is in your skin, your immune system, perhaps even how you sleep. Which means that somewhere, tens of thousands of years ago, a human and a Neanderthal met and chose each other and had a child that lived. You are, in a small and literal way, the descendant of a love story between two different kinds of human. And for all this deep time, one thing is easy to miss. For the most part, women chose. In a mobile band with no wealth, a woman could not be owned. If she was unhappy, she could simply leave and walk to her relatives or to another group. Her choice mattered. Female preference over 1,000,000 years is what shaped males into providers and artists and charmers in the first place. Hunter-gatherers, the evidence suggests, were far more equal between the sexes than what came next. Because what came next changed everything, and it changed love most of all. And then something changed. 12,000 years ago, humans began to farm. They stopped wandering and settled, and for the first time in history, a person could own things that lasted. Land, herds, grain in a store, wealth. And wealth needs heirs. Once a man had property to pass on, one question became an obsession. Are these children truly mine? Because to hand your land to another man's son was the greatest loss imaginable. And so, slowly, a new and darker idea took hold: the control of women. Marriage stopped being a bond two people chose and became a contract two families arranged. A woman moved to her husband's household. Wealth flowed down the male line. Her freedom to leave, the freedom her hunter-gatherer grandmothers had taken for granted, quietly disappeared. Love was no longer the point. Alliance was, property was, paternity was. This is where the dowry comes from. The arranged marriage, the obsession with a bride's purity, the father who gives away the daughter as if she were his to give. Almost everything that has ever trapped or sold or silenced a woman in the name of marriage was born here, in the same soil as the first wheat. Farming did not just change what we ate, it rewrote who we were allowed to love. And we have never fully escaped it. We are still torn between the two. The ancient hunter-gatherer, who mated for passion and could always walk away, and the farmer, who married for property and could not. That quiet war between love and arrangement, between the heart and the household, is still being fought in your family, perhaps in you. So think about that the next time you feel that ancient jolt for a stranger across the room. Everything you do next is 100,000 years old. You will try to look your best. The ochre and the ivory beads become clean clothes and a good haircut. You will try to be funny and interesting. Geoffrey Miller's mating mind, still running, still advertising the health of your brain with a well-told joke. You will offer something, a drink, a dinner, a gift. Lovejoy's provider, still proving he can feed a family, 30,000 years later, over a candlelit table. And if it goes well, the dopamine will flood in, exactly as Helen Fisher described, and blot out the rest of the world until there is only one face, and the old sleepless obsession we have called love since before we had a word for it. You will feel, too, the pull of the two worlds still at war inside you. The part that longs to choose freely, for passion as your deep ancestors did, and the part planted by 10,000 years of farming that weighs status and security and what the family will think. Every modern love story is a negotiation between the forager and the farmer, both of them still alive in your chest. You did not invent any of it, not the racing heart, not the showing off, not the gift, not the ache of choosing. You inherited it, whole from a million years of ancestors who did the single most important thing any living creature can do. They found each other in the dark against the odds, and they did not fail. And that is the only reason you are here to feel it at all. Every one of your ancestors, without a single exception, going back to the first spark of life, succeeded at this. You are the living end of an unbroken chain of successful courtships, 100,000 generations long. When you fall in love, you are not doing something new. You are doing the oldest thing there is. So the next time your heart lurches at a stranger and you feel foolish and hopeful and alive, do not be embarrassed. Remember what it is. It is the fire that every one of your ancestors carried through the dark and handed down all the way to you. That is not weakness. It is the whole reason you exist. That world is gone now, but it never really left you. It's still there, in the instincts you never question and the fears you can't explain. If you want to keep uncovering the vanished worlds that made us who we are, subscribe to the Sidro Files. A like or a share helps the channel more than you'd think. I'll see you in the next one.